Welcome to A Higher Future in Healthcare, where we're exploring obstacles and solutions to healthcare's growing workforce demands. Tune in to hear from thought leaders as they share their perspectives on strategy, technology, AI, and people who are paving the way for transformative change.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Higher Future in Healthcare. I'm Ubaldo Siminetti. And this is our first return guest. So I want to welcome back Peter Voss, who was here. He joined us on A Higher Future back in 2021, talking about AI, AGI, artificial general intelligence. And so we wanted to continue the conversation, see where things are at 2 years later, and talk about it in terms of healthcare. So first of all, welcome back, Peter. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So tell us, talk a little bit about what has been happening. I mean, there's been a huge push around AI and things with ChatGPT. Talk to us a little bit about those new innovations and what they mean.
Yes, certainly. I mean, ChatGPT was launched just almost exactly a year ago,
Right.
and that really is a game changer. I mean, it is an incredibly powerful tool, but as I said, what people are coming to realize quite strongly now is it is powerful, but you cannot rely on it, and it gives you kind of a false sense of security or competence. It's very difficult to actually determine in many cases of whether the information is accurate. So that's a limitation. Use it, but be very careful. Now,
why is it not accurate? I think maybe people don't or misunderstand that. Why is it not accurate?
Right, very good question. So there are a number of reasons for that. And in fact, the word GPT already kind of indicates some of them. The G stands for generative. So it generates output based on its statistical model. And that statistical model is based on massive amounts of information, as I mentioned, good, bad, and ugly.
Sure.
So it takes all of the information available on the web, on Wikipedia, on different databases, whatever they can lay their hands on. They take all of the text information and kind of number crunch it. A very expensive process. The ChatGPT cost more than $100 million to create.
Right.
So it's really, really, because you're talking about now trillions of words that are actually put in. I mean, it's almost incomprehensible how much information there is. But there is no quality assurance on the information that comes in. It's basically whatever they can lay their hands on. And so that model is built, the statistical model is built from all of this knowledge of, what words tend to, predict other words. And it's really a word prediction. But when you use the system, it seems to have so much knowledge and intelligence. It's so fluid in its conversation, and it can do such incredible things that it's very hard to actually say, well, it's only predicting the next word. But that's the core mechanism. Statistically, what is the next word that's most likely? And that's why it can come up with incredibly reasonable and feasible sounding things. But I, for example, could ask it, tell me about the study that I published about kidney revival or something. And it'll come back and tell me about some paper that I published, even with references. That's completely bogus. I mean, I've never done anything like that, And
Interesting.
So if you prompt it to tell you about something that just doesn't exist, it will still,
it'll come up with a story.
More often than not, make up. That's a generative GPT. It makes up stuff, and literally. And
isn't that interesting? It's so funny because we do a training on understanding bias, right? The neuroscience behind bias. Right. And our brains almost do the same thing. They will, in times of when we're in pain or fight or flight scenarios, right? They will take whatever information we have stored in our memory
Mhm.
and create a story to sort of ease that pain, right? So they're making stuff up based on what's available. And so it's almost,
Correct.
it sounds like the same thing, like the basis form of that.
Correct. But when people do that in a serious setting,
Yeah.
they lose their jobs, or get fired or get
Right.
locked up. Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully
sure.
they get caught. I mean, you see the difference is humans, we have metacognition. We have this monitoring. We know what we're talking about. We know when we're lying, we know when we basically justifying something, rationalizing something.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, if we try to, so certainly in a professional's situation, you would, be aware of that. Now, people, of course, use that to manipulate others and so on, where they may well be, aware of that they distorting the truth. But you're right; it's similar. Now, these GPT models don't really have that metacognition. They're not aware of what they're saying or what the implications are. They just create this text. So the fact that they basically make up stuff, and the basis of knowledge that they have, as I say, is this massive amount of good, bad, and ugly. Whereas with humans, we tend to already have filtered down, so there's a lot less bad and ugly in there. Or at least we tend to be more aware of what information we can rely on or not. So that's the G part of it. The P is pre-trained, and that's also a severe limitation, that the system, all of the knowledge that it has, is trained at the factory, this very expensive process. And it cannot learn interactively. Now, there are various ways in which they try to overcome this limitation, but the model cannot really be updated in real time. And that's a serious limitation, because if there's new information that comes about, let's say there's some new study of drug that really changes how you should use it, or what you should be aware of, the only way that you could reliably actually update the model is by retraining the complete model. So you spend another $100 million to include the new information. I mean, that's what we saw with ChatGPT when they now came out with the next version that was trained, up to what I think 2 months ago or something.
Right.
And so the model itself is basically fixed. So any new information that you have, can only be hacked in different ways, and we could talk more about it. But it doesn't really fundamentally update the model. So that is also a problem. And so that's the P, GPT, and the T basically is just the technology that's used, called transformers. And transformers was a real breakthrough when they were invented, because they really allowed this very powerful natural language generation, of this large language model technology. But the transformers are basically lock in the technology to needing to be trained all at once. It's called back propagation, and this is why you need to they cannot learn interactively. That's kind of a limitation. But in the AI field, is because the transformers are so powerful, if you train the whole system at the same time, that's why people use that approach. Now, what we spoke about last time, we're talking about AI here. Now, most people today, when their understanding of what AI is really big data, statistical systems, generative AI, deep learning, machine learning. That's the only idea they really have of AI. But there is another competing approach called cognitive AI that is not fundamentally all about statistics and big data. What it's fundamentally about is, how do humans think, ideally? When we reason about things, how do we learn? We can learn interactively. I mean, as we're having the conversation, we're learning from each other, and it changes. Our model is updated in real time as we, read something, talk to somebody, or listen to something. So cognitive AI really starts with, what does intelligence require? What does human-like intelligence require? And
Yeah.
so the cognitive AI, which is what our company has been developing, commercializing, and perfecting over the last 20 years, and we continue to work on that, is exactly that approach. So like a child, our system can learn instantaneously. For example, you could show a child a single photograph of an elephant. They've never seen an elephant before. They'll be able to recognize it. Statistical systems need thousands of or hundreds of examples of it and they need to be trained then in this batch process. So cognitive AI overcomes the limitations of that, but it's a field that hasn't had a lot of love, because all of the money, it's like momentum investing. Everybody goes after what is currently successful and
applicable.
Money attracts more money, and it's been incredibly successful in many areas, in speech recognition, translation, and image recognition, and so on. So these are very powerful tools, but you need to realize what they are good for. They can make really serious errors. There needs to be a human in the loop. So the area that we're concentrating on is call center automation. The big problem that just many institutions have is, how do we attract people to work in the call center? How do we train them? How do we retain them? I heard a recent statistic that now call centers, people stay on average only 6 weeks on the job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, obviously, a lot of people quit after 24 hours. I guess that what skews the average. Something they say, "Whoa, I can't handle this."
Yeah, right.
But it's a very serious problem. So to automate, on complex conversation where it's not just a single question where you like a Google search or something, we can say, well, this may be the answer, this may be the answer, that may be the answer, and then again, the human can decide, oh yeah, this looks reasonable or this is applicable. But when you're actually having a transactional ongoing conversation like you typically have in a call center, where trying to get something done, an admission or getting advice or then you really need something much more robust, and that is where cognitive AI can really do that job. That's the if you need something reliable that your legal department will be happy with, and your quality assurance, your customer experience team will be happy with.
So in that case, then, and I think this if we think about how AI and cognitive AI can impact positively, like a healthcare environment, for example, a healthcare call center, is the goal there to then give those human call center agents sort of a bigger role, right? So the cognitive AI is helping answer more maybe of those fundamental questions, and then the human can now actually be there to solve a problem.
Yeah, it's a combination of those things. So yes, you can sort of think of it in tier 1 support, tier 2 support. If you're relating it to kind of tech support or something. So similar in the medical field, where cognitive AI is not yet developed to full human level, so it clearly cannot handle the very complex things, but it can handle a large number of types of transactions, and it will know when it needs to transfer to a live person, if at all. Some things will be fully automated, and other things you can transfer to an operator. And with cognitive AI technology, the other great advantage is when you need to transfer to an operator, to a human, it can then give them a summary immediately of what you've already discussed, what you already know, because that's always super frustrating when you talk to one person and it's above their pay grade and they need to transfer you, or you got to the wrong department, and then you have to start all over again. So we can avoid that with our cognitive AI approach.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's we're starting to get to a point where I can see where these personal AI becomes a thing, right? Where we each have our own AI that, because, I'm thinking for physicians or nurses to bounce ideas off of, right?
Yes.
We could use the cognitive AI assistant
Yeah.
to be able to do that. And then we're both learning at the same time, but that assistant has access to way more information that we could
Right.
ever store in our brains. So, and to your point, it's instantaneous. And then there's an instantaneous summarization. Where could this be misused in a healthcare environment?
Well, I mean, you always have to, ask yourself, what can the system do? What are its strengths and
Yeah.
what are its weaknesses?
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, large companies, large consulting companies and so on, overpromise on what these large language models can do. And, it's kind of a replay of the IBM Watson fiasco, when it
Sure.
got into healthcare, where IBM was promising everything in the world that it could do, and it turned out that it couldn't reliably. And I mean, they ended up shutting down the whole Watson division, basically, because of that. So there is the kind of the same risk here, that you get big consulting firms that can make a lot of money, charge millions of dollars to investigate, to implement, and so on, but really being quite unrealistic. So one needs to ask hard questions, as how do we deal with the confabulations, with the hallucinations that the system has. Then we have data leakage. That's another big problem, is the data that these systems are trained with can be exposed. So how certain are you that the data you're putting into the system, the queries you're putting in, isn't going to end up somewhere else in the public? I mean, that's another big big risk. So again, in cognitive AI approach, in our approach, ours is not a black box approach. It's transparent, it's scrutable, it's auditable, and that helps a lot to know where the data is, where it came from, where it's going. So you have that kind of data security with that approach. But you mentioned the personal assistant. I know we spoke about that last time, and for us, that is the big goal that we're working towards, is to provide what we call a personal assistant. That truly the individual owns. It serves their purpose, not some mega corporation's agenda. And that it learns continually as you interact with it. So it's hyper personalized to the individual. And it's also that your data is secure, that you decide what it shares with whom exactly. But that is what our company is working towards. But we still have some development to do to really crank up the IQ for the system, to have a better understanding of how it needs to do things. So that's actually what we're working on right now in our company.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I was at a conference this fall, and the author of *Sapiens*, Yuval Noah Harari, he was speaking, and he was talking about AI, and there was a little bit of fear mongering in his talk, but he had this great concept, which has just stuck with me, which is that consciousness does not equal intelligence. And I think for me, that makes it super clear in where we're at right now in terms of AI, because AI can be super intelligent, to your point. I mean, it has access to all of this information.
Right.
But I think it takes consciousness to do something good or bad with it. And that's sort of the differentiator here between us and AI, is we have consciousness, and we can apply this data in a lot of different ways. But AI is not quite there yet. And so it'll be really interesting when it does get there. And, with these personal assistants, I don't know. That's just an interesting concept that helps me differentiate. And then so it makes it easier for me, I think, to make decisions about how I might use AI, right? Because
yes, yeah,
it helps.
Yeah, it again comes down to the human in the loop and what we spoke
Yes.
about, that there isn't this metacognition. So
Yes.
metacognition and consciousness are related. It's basically
Yes.
it's self-awareness. Are you aware of your thought process? Are you aware that you are an agent that causes things in the world?
Right.
Are you conceptually aware of that? So it's conceptual awareness of your own actions and your thoughts. And that's really consciousness, and metacognition is a part of that. And yes, the current systems don't really have that, or to the extent that they have it is extremely limited. And once you have this self-awareness and this metacognition, then really agents are in a much more direct way responsible for what they're doing. Now, the fear mongering, I think, is quite misplaced from my perspective, is because the machines we're building, unlike humans, don't inherently have any drives to reproduce or to survive. I mean, evolution fine-tuned us, otherwise we wouldn't be here,
Yeah. Yeah.
to reproduce and to survive,
Yeah.
or putting it
Absolutely.
negatively, to rape and pillage. So
Right. Absolutely.
unfortunately, we that's what evolution did to us, and our
Yeah.
rational side is really an evolutionary afterthought. Our rationality
Sure.
is
Sure.
not very well developed yet.
Yeah.
Whereas with AI, cognitive AI, it's inherently designed to serve humans, to be rational. So it's very, very different from what created us, evolution.
Yeah.
So there really is very little reason to believe that any of the cognitive AIs that really can think and reason properly will have any motivation other than to do, to help us to yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely.
what they were designed for, basically.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, I think that's a great place to end the conversation, and I hope that our audience, can take all of this information as they decide how they're going to implement these different systems within their hospital systems. Because yeah, at the end of the day, I think it can be such a tremendous help if implemented in the right way, if communicated in the right way, right? And I think that will be huge. And to your point about call centers and the workforce shortage, it's hard to hire and it's hard to
Yeah.
retain employees in that kind of scenario. So if this technology can help alleviate some of that headache, then
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, no,
Let's do
absolutely.
it.
That's what we're doing. And anybody who wants help with any kind of customer interaction, customer support, or even internal staff help,
Yeah,
that doesn't confabulate, that you can rely on, that come talk to us. And
absolutely. Where can
the
they go to reach out? Reach out.
igo.ai, aigo.ai.
Perfect.
And you could just email me, peter@igo, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, our website. So it's easy to find us. And the other part that our company is focusing on now is a development process, because with the excitement of large language models, obviously
Yeah.
a lot of people now are motivated to really crank up the IQ of the system. So in our company, we also have a project now to focus on development and to utilize the technology that's available as well to improve the cognitive AI, the sort of reliable AI
Sure.
approach. So we're also looking for partners and investors to help us move the to get closer to the personal assistant as well.
Yeah, that'd be
And
great.
to do that quicker.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Peter. This has been great. I really appreciate it. It was good to see you again. And I think, the goal is at some point in 2024 to have a fireside chat sort of thing with you
Right.
and some healthcare leaders, because I know they have so many more questions and we've been able to cover today. And so I think it would be great, again, just to maybe alleviate some of those unnecessary fears, but also just to get some clarity on what they can do with
Right.
the technology.
Yeah.
So
Let's look
forward to that.
All
Awesome.
right.
Well, thank
Great.
you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
A Higher Future in Healthcare is a production of IIA Healthcare, a healthcare technology company and creators of Interview IA, an interview platform for healthcare organizations to streamline their interview processes to deliver unparalleled candidate experiences and to create a true competitive advantage for delivering quality care. Learn more at www.iiahealthcare.com.